on my mind.
Hello and welcome back to the world's leading combat sports podcast, The Boxing Show, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe, turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, it's been a while since I've done that. It took me a couple of takes, but we are back and joined by the usual twosome of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke as we review last week's action and look forward to Canelo Alvarez versus Edgar Berlanga this weekend in Las Vegas. You're right there, Barry, just looking over to you. You're that excited that I'm back that you're licking your fingertips. It's quite unnerving.
I don't know what's in my tea bag.
What have you got there?
Inside of a mattress, it looks like.
I was going to say, would I have you failing
Anyway,
in VADA tests?
right,
What have you got here? Like, this is this is like the phentamine tea or phentamine tea that Oscar Valdez had a few years ago, whatever it was. How are we doing, chaps?
What doesn't
It's been a
kill
while.
you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, but right, Mason. Nice to see you.
Oh, we're keeping that first take in.
No,
I mean, this is an organic show.
No, we're going to put that behind the paywall. Just to announce to everybody that we are launching Boxing News' Patreon now. That's available
It's
behind
worth
there.
it. It's
yeah,
worth it.
£500 per click through to that video, I think.
This thing?
No, so in order to keep the very, very spicy first, it's not very spicy at all, it's very boring intro in there that Andy wants to keep in. But we're gonna put it on a Patreon because Barry's about to ask me about money. So we're gonna put it on a Patreon and we're gonna split all proceeds.
Seriously, you
a third each.
Hang on, I don't give a shit. You take the piss, like.
Literally, I've been back for less than 5
I don't write
minutes.
anything down, but I've documented all the bollocks you've told me over the years. I got it all there. It's like there's a book. Yeah, I'll have a podcast, but Tebbutt's full of shit.
Tebbutt's full of shit. Yeah, that we can replace the award-winning the Knockout,
Seriously,
which is also available now on
we
Amazon.
should do this on air, but like, if this can go behind the paywall, if you're charging people,
Yeah.
You
This, for all you know, this could be on a paywall, Barry, for your technological capability. I'm not sure that you're on Patreon.
I still don't know what you're on about, but like, but yeah, I need more money, and I don't know what to tell you.
It's literally been back less than 5 minutes. So
I'm doing, and if I wouldn't pay. Don't pay for it. If we're not regular enough, every 3 weeks or something like that.
you're just arguing against the success
I
of
don't
the
give a fuck.
podcast.
Well, it was a successful podcast. You ruined it with you having your missus having a kid, so you've got to take time off. I don't know what that's all about. What have you got to take time off for? Tired with you?
We're a forward-thinking
Tired.
company. We're a forward-thinking company. So we had 3 weeks of paternity, and then I had a week of annual
What
leave.
do
It was
you
great.
do?
To be fair, a lot
the holiday.
a lot of nappy changing and bottle feeding.
Well,
mate,
I
to
do
be
that
fair.
anyway, mate. No, I don't do it. No, that's a bit weird. But like, I'm still good to work. I don't know what you're on about. Like, you just anyway, just carry
But
on.
I'm back now, and you're really happy to have me back. But anyway, we're going to leave Barry there to just control his emotions just for 5 minutes as he gets used to me being back. How are you, Andy? How have you been?
Good, yeah. Yeah, I've had a good time the last few weeks. Had a couple of interesting trips. Played a bit of cricket yesterday. The James Cook All-Stars against the London ex-boxers. Spicy grudge match, lost with 2 balls to go. Contentious, though.
That
Contentious.
sounds close.
They bowled a lot of double bouncers,
Oh yeah.
which makes it difficult to hit double bouncers, I found.
Shout out the Americans in the chat. No idea what he's talking
James
about.
Cook
What's
got a great direct hit run out, swooped in on it like a panther in the final over, which nearly got us over the line, but not quite. Andy Scott was playing. John Conte was there doing the auction. It was good. It was wicked. It was a really good day out. Raised some money for the Ringside Trust.
Shout out the Ringside Charitable Trust. Everybody take a look at that and make your donations. Before we move on, you were also in Cuba, weren't you, recently?
I was, yeah.
Love
I
an
was.
away day, don't you, Andy?
I do, yeah, I do.
Loves
It's I'll never not want to do stuff like that. It's quite a brutal amount of travelling for quite a short trip, but the first day I got there, I went into the old town and got off the bus, and you were immediately asked if you want to buy cigars and rum and stuff like that, and I just said to the guy, I don't need any of that, but just take me to the gyms. I want to go to the gyms. So I had a look around the old gyms in the town, bought some hugely marked up, overpriced Cuban gear, which equipment, clothing. When I say Cuban gear,
shout out Vlada.
So I've got a great Cuba T-shirt, national team T-shirt. That's kind of how the economy works over there. Really, everybody's got a side hustle, and I was only too happy to contribute to it. And it's kind of funny, Havana. You could see how 30 years ago it would have had that faded kind of grandeur and the romance that sort of comes with it, of harking back to the days of Hemingway and stuff like that. But now it's just kind of falling apart, to be honest with you. It's really, a lot of the buildings there just look barely fit for habitation. It's still it's an amazing place to go, but life is hard there.
Sorry about that. My phone's saying shut the fuck up.
Life is hard there. You can see it. You can see it. But the boxing was great because it was at the Coliseo de la Ciudad Deportivo, which is where they had the very first World Championships in 1974. So 50 years on, all the greats have boxed there, all of them. And we had Julio La Cruz, Arlen Lopez, Roniel Iglesias, Lazaro Alvarez, Erislandy Alvarez, the kind of new guy who won gold in Paris. They were all on the card together, so there was like 7 Olympic gold medals and 10 World Championship gold medals between them. And a couple are knocking on now. They're in their mid-30s, Iglesias and La Cruz. So I think that's probably the last time I'll see them all on the same night. And see them all on the same night, plus the younger Alvarez there was great. 10,000 people there, all loving it.
It was a championship or something? Or?
It was an IBA Pro
Night of
Series
Champions?
night. Night of Champions. They put
nice.
on a few of those, and it was packed out. It was great. It was really great.
Do you have any idea as to, I mean, obviously we love a little bit of a diversion at the start of the podcast. Do you have any idea of what Erislandy Alvarez may or may not be doing? Because we've spoken in the past with Jerry Saldivar, who's part of, I can't remember the name, Gold something Promotions, who were kind of handling the professional side, quote unquote, of the Cuban boxing. Erislandy Alvarez, I mean, if you didn't see him in the Olympics, fantastic, winning the gold against Sofiane Umaha. Looks like he really has that type of style that could translate well to the pros.
He definitely does.
But it's not necessarily as easy as that without kind of defection, which obviously is not easy either.
No, it's complicated because they have boxed pro, all of those fighters on that card, because they decided to relax that in 2022, Cuba. They kind of relaxed the ban on professional sport in general around about 2013, and then it was lifted on boxing in 2022, but that was still the first pro card in Cuba since. So they have boxed as pros, but they've done it under that banner whereby they haven't had to defect, but they've not been in big fights, and there's not been any real strategy behind what it is that they're doing exactly. Lopez and La Cruz on the night I was there won IBA world titles, which is something they're trying to push and generate as being something, and they're concentrating on their core countries or their core market, which they feel is Russia, basically, Central Asia, and also Cuba, and they feel they can get something going within that framework. Whether they can or not, who knows, but they do have money, as we know. So they will definitely look to keep Erislandy Alvarez where he is through that, being able to reward him through that. To what extent they see the money, I've really no idea. But he definitely does have a style that would translate to the pros. The others on the list there, La Cruz is in his mid-30s now and doesn't really have a pro style. He won his fight, but the man to watch on the night was Lopez. He's 31, and he was still razor sharp. He stopped his guy and looked really good. I feel like he could still do something if he were to defect and head for America. I don't think he will, though. I don't think he will.
Yeah, it's all about that stage now. It's kind of hard to see it. But yeah, okay, that's for the Cuban amateur boxing aficionados in the chat. Before we talk about this weekend, we are going to go back to last week. Barry, going to come to you first for the return of a certain Naoya Inoue, successfully retaining his undisputed super bantamweight titles with, I don't want to say underwhelming, but not the stoppage victory that we're grown accustomed to seeing from Inoue, but albeit a dominant performance nonetheless.
He took his time, didn't he? I wouldn't say he looked tentative, but he looked a little bit more. I'm not going to force it.
Mike.
Well, what am I supposed to do, mate? I'm right fucking on it.
That's right, just move it back a little bit. Just move it. See, I was always so.
Well, normally you say.
So I either get told off by people in the chat for not getting used to talking to the mic, or get told off by you doing it. Rock and a hard place. You're going to tell me off again when it. Anyway, sorry, Barry. Go on.
Yeah, well, I just said it, haven't I? No, yeah, he was a little bit, not, again, I can't think of the word, not cautious, but a little bit more thoughtful before he really pulled the trigger. He actually didn't really pull the trigger, did he?
No.
So I think it was a funny little ending. But yeah, it's still winning, isn't he? I mean, kind of every performance can be the stellar performance, because we expect him to get rid of Doheny quite quickly. That's the truth, because of the way he's been dealing with higher opposition, easier. So we thought this is going to be a couple of rounds, and then you don't factor in how Doheny was sitting on a back foot, turning his shoulder, being as negative as he could be to be safe, understandable, and trying to fire back when he can. And also, I just think, that because he got dropped in his last fight, I think he was just a little bit more aware of he is in a bigger weight now, anyway, and you can feel the punches more, so you have to be a bit more careful what you're doing. And because you have the power and the ability, you can just break him down. And I don't think he even panics about whether I stop you in 1 round or 9.5 or 10 rounds, whatever it is. As long as I get rid of you, I get rid of you, which is what you should be doing, really. And the finish, I think the round before, he obviously got beat up a little bit, Doheny, but he got caught. As he got caught, he turned, and he got caught with a shot in the back. And when he went, and I think that affected him. And he was hurt, and he was going to get finished anyway. But that's why people said I think the commentary didn't quite see it, but he did get caught with a punch in the back. But he turned onto it, so it's one of those things. But yeah, there's only one fight left in there for me, anyway. That's the truth. And that's that Akhmadiliev. That's his name, isn't it?
Super bantam, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the fight. I know, because I work for Eddie Hearn's company. No, I think that's logically the only real fight that makes sense at that weight now. Until unless someone comes into the weight, which is because he's dealt with everybody now, hasn't he? And he's the star. He's still he's beautiful to watch. I still enjoyed every minute of it. Because the way he just keeps his shape all the time, doesn't rush, and just goes through the sections all the time. He makes sure I hit him with the jab, and I hit the jab, I solid right down through the middle. I walk him down, don't give him any space, make him work hard, and then when they slow down, I beat them up.
Do you think what you mentioned there about obviously his last fight against Lewis Neary is a guy who could punch anyway, even at bantam up,
and an erratic style as well. So.
Yeah. Do you feel like we're at the stage now? I mean, people are, we've spoken about it numerous times in the past, obsessed with kind of this notion of moving through the weights. Ultimately, move through the weights until you get beat, and then that's kind of your type. Are we seeing that now with Inoue being sort of topped out physically at 122 pounds? Maybe.
I think he'll go to featherweight though. I think he will, and he might very well be successful with the right dance partner. But then it depends who you get, because you might get a super featherweight who's can just stay at feather, who's then 5'10",
like Rafael Espinosa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then he might still beat him, because how good he is. But yeah, I think we've seen now with the physical strength at super bantamweight is not in his favour anymore, like it was going through the divisions. But he has raw power, and he has flawless technique, which added with the power that he naturally has. Listen, you can generate power with great technique, but when you have natural power anyway, when you're born with it, and you have the technique that he has, then you can knock out anybody at any fucking weight. That's the truth of it. If you hit them right, they're gone at any weight. Fury, watch out, he's coming for you. But I do think really if he moves at the featherweight, I don't think he'd get beat by somebody quite quickly. I think he'd win, and he's win a world title. But I think all those fights would be very difficult. He could make one mistake. And I think we've sort of seen maybe that at super bantamweight, but you can't criticise a man who's beating everyone up, can you? He's just fantastic to watch. You've got to be one of your favourite fighters to watch, haven't he? I want him to stay at super bantam, and I want him to sort of like maybe, how can we get Bam and him to fight?
I don't think it'll be that long before we see Bam Rodriguez up at bantamweight. Obviously, it's super fly. We're waiting for news on that rematch with Juan Francisco Estrada. But he's the back and even his arms. He's got the body of a kind of super feather lightweight, doesn't he? But it's crammed into a super fly bantam.
But he is short, and as is Inoue, like they're even shorter than me. But like I say, I met someone at Legoland. I went to Legoland, my boy and my daughter and my missus, don't forget anyone, and random people. But we stayed a couple of nights in the hotel. But I met a couple of people who loved the podcast.
Hey,
I mean, they don't like.
They are out there.
They don't like you two, ironically, but they like the podcast. But they said you're taller than what we thought, which was like that's just the fucking nicest thing to say. Like that was it. I just wanted to get that out there.
There we go. Anyway, Andy.
That was it. I go home now, my job's done.
Just touching on something that Barry said there. I mean, Inoue is obviously one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He has been for an awful long time. Seemed as though, kind of to touch on what Barry said there, it seems a victim of his own success somewhat. I mean, Print wins pretty much every second of every round against TJ Doheny, and you get people crawling out of the woodworks and kind of pointing the finger at him. It wasn't as explosive as we've seen from Inoue in the past. What did you make of his performance?
I thought it was a satisfactory performance by his standards. In reality, it was a bit of a placeholder of a fight, but it worked for them because everybody knows who TJ Doheny is in Japan. Yeah. They respect him. They've seen him. He was happy to take the fight. He was comfortable in the surroundings. It kind of worked for everybody without it being a mega fight or the kind of challenge that you would want him to take, but you're not going to be able to achieve that in every fight for somebody. It's just not possible, and it's much, much better that you just keep fighting anyway rather than you end up not fighting for a year because you're waiting for something to happen, because things can fall through for so many reasons or become difficult for so many reasons. So I don't think they could have done much better than that as a match from what I hear at the time. So they made it, and it maybe wasn't the most inspiring one for him. What I do find interesting about him too is that he is still a bit of a man of mystery for us, isn't he? Because we don't really know that much about him, and I do quite like that. But I would quite like to know a bit more. I know he doesn't really speak English, does he? Oh. And they keep him boxing in Japan, which I'm a fan of. And Top Rank, I think their next plan is to take him to Las Vegas. Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? Because I wouldn't say that Top Rank have kept Saudi Arabia at arm's length, but they haven't committed in the way that Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn have. Maybe they've not really been asked to. I know they had that show in LA, and I saw a signed contract or whatever it was, or agreement published online by Turki Al Sheikh. But it's just interesting to me that he's one of their major global stars, and they're thinking, no, next we want to take him to Las Vegas, because can we just all remember that is still a really big boxing hub? The whole thing hasn't just moved up sticks and gone completely somewhere else. So I find that kind of interesting. It's
going to be something that we'll come on to talk about later on in the pod as well, when we discuss Canelo Alvarez, Gervonta Davis, another kind of global name that so far has eluded the clutches of Turki Al Sheikh and Saudi. But yeah, on Inoue, he I think it looks as though, kind of the timeline of events was that he was due to box Sam Goodman, who's the WBO and the IBF mandatory. Of course, Murodjon Akhmadaliev has been called by the WBA. It was kind of that very funny situation where it was like, well, if you don't box Murodjon Akhmadaliev, we're going to strip you the WBA title. And he's like, well, you fight for a vacant belt against Sam Goodman or somebody like that, you make 10% of the money. It's we'll wait, it's okay. But it looks as though it's going to be Sam Goodman next, the Australian, who could be the opponent in the other corner in Las Vegas come the end of the year, before returning either to Tokyo or who knows for Murodjon Akhmadaliev. The one name that has been touted, certainly not necessarily next, but as a future opponent of Naoya Inoue, is an all-Japanese super fight, Barry, one that I know will very much be of your liking, between Naoya Inoue and the current bantamweight king, Junto Nakatani.
That's good.
That do anything for you, Barry?
Nah.
You like that one?
Boring, isn't it? Like a jab fest.
Is that his most realistic? With respect to Sam Goodman and Akhmadaliev,
yes.
Is that going to be the kind of the threat in the rearview window for Inoue?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the real, his little super fight, isn't it? To be honest, Nakatani. That's they talk about nowadays, modern promoting events. That's an event. That is him and Nakatani. And I have like Nakatani's tall. He punches long. He can hit extremely hard. At the knockout of the year last year, or was it the year before? 2023. Yeah, unbelievable. Just an unbelievable shot. So, that's a hard win. You close the gap against him without getting caught, and we can see it, and then we can get caught.
By southpaw as well.
Yeah. So it's a really difficult task. So yeah, and that's what you want. You want to see fighters who are destructive up against each other. But they're both thoughtful fighters. I think Inoue's a more thoughtful fighter than Nakatani, I think. But they both think about it. They don't. No, the thing about I think it's a stereotype all Japanese fighters, and they're not all the same. But they're quite structured in their work. Even the ones who fought with their face, and we've had some of those back in the day. But even they were quite structured with what they did. They fought with their face every round. No, I mean, you always keep your shape. You always you're never really swinging like a lunatic, and so it looks like they don't have the athleticism, but they do, just in a different way. They maybe like Nakatani and Inoue for that. Always elbows tucked in tight, always hands high, so everything works. You always punch inside their body frame, especially Inoue. He's perfect for it, and that makes it difficult for everyone to fight. So that would be a proper thinking match, with danger every time someone lets a punch go. What's not to like about that? I don't know. I'd pick Inoue, I think, but I wouldn't bet my house on it.
Is that the fight for you, Andy? Inoue versus Nakatani? It seems as though they were building towards that. There's been some respectful chat, I think, between both camps. Neither really have customarily been the type to shout from the rooftops to build it, but it looks as though that could be one to build towards in Japan. Yeah,
and I think that given how strong Japanese boxing is and always has been at those lower weights, I think it needs to happen, that kind of rivalry for him, or at least that kind of fight. And were it to go well and to be a really good fight and to be a close fight, then they could do it again. Because I do think that wherever you're from, if you can have a domestic rivalry, it does just elevate you, doesn't it? I mean, he's a big star there, no question, a big star, but you can always become bigger, and that is the way to do it. That is the way to do it. And I think that surely must be what his team and Japanese boxing in general is looking for, really, because it's good that they've kept him boxing at home, and you hear constantly comments about how, well, if he wants to really be a big star, he needs to go and box in America, ignoring the fact that he's already done that. It's boring. It's really boring, and a big Japanese domestic clash, and possibly second fight, and who knows, even third. That'd be great. I think while Inoue is kind of handling other business down at £122, if Junto Nakatani could box Inoue's brother, Takuma, of course, a belt holder at bantamweight as well, big unification, you can really start getting behind that. That has to be the plan, doesn't it? Yeah. We also saw Yoshiki Takai defend his belt against Daigo Higa on the undercard of Inoue. Great fight that was. Wouldn't fancy Yoshiki Takai's chances against Junto Nakatani. Way too easy to hit. Yeah, not on that show him. That was a great little fight. Daigo Higa, for the hardcore losers amongst us. He's getting on. But remember, in 2017, he was like the guy at flyweight. He was like 15-0, 15 knockouts, and then he boxed Christopher Rosales. But he was. I remember, like, you see sometimes in these bloody god awful UFC weigh-ins where they're like being carried to the scales. Sort of happened to him back then, because there was the fight that was kind of being mooted at the time was Daigo Higa against Andrew Selby. That was being discussed as a potential fight there, and he kind of lost his way a little bit down at flyweight, but was in a brilliant fight with Yoshiki Takai on the undercard recently, Higa. But yeah, kind of back to Nakatani. If that's a fight that they can make, either the Takai fight, or they can make the Inoue Junior, Inoue 2.0 fight, then that should be something that could help build things.
You think so? But I don't. The fight doesn't need any build-up, does it?
No.
I mean, you want to try and build a storyline, a narrative that he beats his brother and he wants to get revenge and all that. But I don't know whether they do that over there. Do they? They don't need that sort of drama, do they? Really?
I don't know. I think actually it can't hurt, surely.
It can, but I don't know whether they buy into it as much.
But just thinking about if you're Nakatani as well, because it looks as though Nakatani's not going to be moving up anytime soon in his next fight, perhaps. And obviously Inoue has those mandatories to take care of. Yeah. So we could see something like that. You could see Nakatani clear up the rest of the belts at bantamweight. You get undisputed versus undisputed.
Yes.
Very, very exciting stuff. As is this weekend, big time boxing is back, Andy, in Las Vegas, Nevada, as we see the return of Canelo Alvarez. Defends his unified, not undisputed super middleweight titles now against Edgar Berlanga. I mean, not necessarily the fight. It feels like we're saying this about every single Canelo fight of the last couple of years. It's not necessarily the fight that people have been demanding. Of course, the David Benavidez fight is something that we will come on and talk about. But yeah, a sizable favourite heading into this weekend against Edgar Berlanga.
And correctly so. It's not really a fight that does an awful lot for me, to be honest. I saw Oscar De La Hoya firing off about it on Twitter the other day, and he's kind of increasingly becoming what you might describe as an unhinged Roy Keane of the boxing world, Oscar De La Hoya.
Roy Keane with like fake abs.
And there is room for that. There is definitely room for that. And he was saying this is a snooze fest. It won't even do 100,000 on pay-per-view. And I don't know whether he'll turn out to be right in terms of those numbers, but it's not exactly something that gets your pulse racing, is it? Because I don't see, and I very rarely say this, but I don't really see any circumstances in which Canelo doesn't win. I see a Berlanga win as being as impossible as a win can ever be in a two-horse race.
So that's all from our Canelo Berlanga preview. We'll catch up with you next week.
What about you two, though?
Obviously, my job is to try and play devil's advocate, but we'll let Barry have his, I guess, opening salvo. I mean, looking back through, I will go straight into devil's advocate, otherwise this could get very one-sided. But if you look at Canelo's resume, I mean, people had the same things to say about Jaime Munguia. He was 43-0.
He thinks he can sway me.
Edgar Berlanga, 22-0, young, unbeaten power puncher. I'm really trying to sell it. 16 first round knockouts. Can you see any which way that Edgar Berlanga upsets the odds this weekend?
You can't. Obviously, you can't. You know, this. You just hope it. Like everyone, you're just hoping Canelo gets old overnight, slow down. You're naturally bigger guy. You know, that Puerto Rican Mexico thing gives you a little bit of a G up and all that sort of stuff. But if anything, I just think that because you talk about at the high level sports, I said this Saturday, when we were working, cope with pressure is the biggest factor. Cope with the pressure of whether it's in a stadium or who you're up against, or just the fear of factor and all. I just got to cope with all that pressure and harness it. Skill, but you get to a certain level. Everyone's got lots of skill enough to win, but he lacks everything. Everything that he does, Canelo does better. That's the truth of it. And a Canelo night's the biggest night in boxing, for anyone. So you've seen fighters who've been big fighters on top and bills in big arenas on their own, and they go against Canelo, and you can see how petrified they are. And it might just be because it's the realization of who he is, or just the crowd, or the whole week's it's him, and you might feel intimidated and bullied the whole week. Forget about that. All that plays a factor. Not just we always talk about ultimately it's in the changing room when you're just about to get ready, or when on your ring walk when you're just out when you're in the back of the arena. Before you come through the onto the stage or whatever it may be, that moment there you can hear it. He's not going to get a great response, is he? I don't know how many Puerto Ricans are going to come out to support him. Hopefully loads, but he's going to be up against it. But ultimately, even forget about all that. Just them two in the ring. I just think he gets overhauled. I think what Canelo will do is take his time because he's naturally smaller, and he'll hit him somewhere really hard. It doesn't matter where it is. Like Canelo does that thing that I always used to talk about all the time.
Arms and elbows.
Just hit him early, make him feel it early. He'll make him feel the power really early. And then Berlanga, who's not the fastest, will tense up because you think I got to get it right. And if he tenses up, he hasn't got the fastest of hands or feet or brain. I don't think. Let's be honest. I'm not saying he's unintelligent. I'm just saying compared to Canelo, that Canelo will slow him down to a point where he'll be just a walking punch bag. That sounds horrible to say that. I don't want to be disrespectful. So what do you do there? Do you take a leap? Do you just take a risk and go, I'm just going to swing? I'm bigger guys who go in there and just take the centre of the ring, plant my flag there, go, come on. That sounds great. And
sounds romantic, doesn't
it? Heroic and all that, but realistically, that's too much of a risk. When he hits you, knock you out in one round. You want to start going, he hasn't got the ability of a Charlo to run for 12 rounds either and be safe and just still go, I run the distance. Like fighters can do, against others, against Crawford and people like that. So he's going to be struggling from the offset, and so I don't see how he just doesn't get beat within. I think it'll take Canelo like 7-8 rounds because he'll take his time. I don't think that he won't be able to finish it early. I just don't think he'll choose to. He'll wait till he's literally on his way out, and like Canelo does, doesn't he?
I think that's really interesting what you said there about that first punch that lands hard. And I do think that is such a moment, because you don't really know what it's going to be like as a fighter, and they all say this, until you actually feel it, and you can build it up in your mind, and sometimes it's not as bad as you think, and you can take some confidence from that. But how you react to that very first exchange, particularly in a massive fight like that, where you've been under that kind of spotlight all week, almost in that split second, that's what it all comes down to. Which way will you go? Is it worse than you thought it would be? Is it like that kind of taser effect? Do you panic and tighten up, and then, it's just a downward spiral from there? Or do you go in the other direction? Are you more ready for it? It does almost come down to that. You can almost tell probably when that happens on the night as to what is going to happen now. And it doesn't mean if he reacts well to it that he's going to go on and win. But if he does react well to it, then maybe he can really put on a performance. The idea of kind of standing there and, planting your feet and swinging is a really kind of appealing, heroic notion, unless you're the person who actually has to do it. It's great for us. But if you're the one who actually has to do it, it's a very difficult choice to make, that, I think.
How does Edgar Berlanga go about it then, Barry? I mean, we saw him start off his career at a rate of knots. How many? I think it was 16 knockouts in first round knockouts as well. Yeah. Which, I mean, we all know, even if you knock 16 guys out, you still got to get rid of them. Getting rid of them all in the first round. There is punching power there to a degree at some sort of level. If you're in the Edgar Berlanga corner, if you're in the Edgar Berlanga business, do you just tell him to go out there and try and because you would the kind of the flip side, and you mentioned there about Charlo kind of staying safe and box on the outside. It's not Berlanga. If he's going to go and do that, try and box like a Mayweather or a Bivol or a Lara.
Yeah, got the feet of ease. No. Yeah, and you got to go and do ultimately game plans are great, and especially a certain style to beat this fella. But you can't change what you are. You just got to try and adapt with what you got to a point where you don't lose anything that you do well. So you do what you do best. But I think he has to be aggressive. He has to try and push Canelo back, or try and use a jab. You got to try and double that jab up. But you're not going to out jab Canelo, I don't think. But you have to try and double jab, right hand over the top, try and punch long, try and push him back if you can, or just don't allow him to push you back, and it gives you a chance to land with some weighty shots, because he does have power. But Canelo has a great chin. Even now, that chins don't last forever, but I mean, he still has a good enough chin, and he has good timing, and he sees punches just enough to take the sting off him at times. So I don't know. But that thing about punching early, I saw that with Naz was the first one I saw that. I noticed that. It's happened forever, but first time I noticed it was Naz do it. He would just whack him really quick, and then you could just see him either shit their pants or not bottle it, but just try and be over aware. So you tense it because you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna get hurt. You just think, oh, I gotta sharpen up here, and then you think you're doing the right thing, but your body's working against you. You should have seen. I've seen good fighters just go like that. You can see him see the back of them, all the veins in the neck are like this, and they go, and then he just slows you down, and then and then he makes you miss. Worse, that's the worst. They hurt you, then they make you miss. And Canelo does that now, doesn't he? Since Mayweather, when he learned about moving his head better and more lateral movement, he took a bit of Mayweather, didn't he, from him a little bit. And so he hurts you, then he makes you miss. And that's the worst, because then if you expose yourself, you're going to get hurt. But also, if he makes you miss, you're super exposed then. And then then the panic comes in. And yeah.
Then you have that strange spectacle where you've got two fighters seemingly fighting completely different fights. One who's relaxed and taking his time, and the other one who's in fast forward. It's a really weird thing to watch, but a really fascinating thing to watch. Yeah. And it happens because of exactly how Barry just described it. But it doesn't almost seem possible. You think, what's happened there that they're fighting at two completely different paces? It's like watching a cartoon.
It's a war of attrition for him, and it's just a walk in the pack. It's mad, isn't it?
It is a crazy thing to see.
As I mentioned at the start of this discussion, excuse me, on Canelo Berlanga, it feels like we are having a very, very similar conversation, or arguably the conversation is getting more towards, what version of Canelo are we on now? Like what version of this career, what stage of this career is he?
We saw against Munguia though that he's still good enough. I think Munguia had more of a chance than Berlanga, in my view, and I think everyone's view, but we didn't give him any chance really. And he was fine. Canelo, he looked so fresh enough for me. I don't know how he stays fresh.
Well, I mean, he's not as active as he as.
No, that was just a really bad timed cough. That was.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, he stays. He's not as busy as he once was in his career. He tends to fight twice a year. But some will say that he's not facing the stiffest level of opposition that he could face. David Benavidez is a name that's been mentioned. David Morrell, kind of latterly, or less so than David Benavidez. But Andy, it does feel as though we are having this conversation every 6 months, going back to really maybe the Dmitry Bivol fight. I mean, you consider the Gennady Golovkin trilogy bout on the back of that wasn't, particularly well received. Golovkin at the time, in the autumn of his career and being dragged up to super middleweight. John Ryder, as good of a fighter as John Ryder is, and I think everybody on this panel has an awful lot of respect for him. Not considered by many to be an elite fighter. Jamel Charlo, of course, up from 54. Jaime Munguia, who, as Barry just mentioned there, not awful lot of people gave him much hope. And now we're on Edgar Berlanga. It is a resume that, we have kind of picked our way through at various points over the last few years. And, resumes are very easy to do that depending on your kind of slant on it that you're trying to give. But people aren't thrilled for the Edgar Berlanga fight, and they do wish to see him take those other opportunities. But it doesn't look as though they're going to be particularly forthright for Canelo, those big fights that we want to see him in.
No, it is unfortunate because he got a good amount of credit, and I think rightly so, for steaming through the super middleweights in the pace that he did it at, because he was setting a good standard there, wasn't he, at that point, whereby, look, I'm the biggest name in the sport and I can box this regularly, so what's the matter with the rest of you? I think we all really liked that, but they were all realistically fights he was going to win. I always felt like he did want to rematch Bivol, but it just hasn't happened. I don't know what the reasons are for that. Obviously, Bivol's fighting undisputed against Beterbiev, but I do believe that he wanted to do that, and most people would probably have advised him not to do it because we felt that it showed that it was going to be a tall order to beat one of the very best light heavyweights. But when you go through the list, it kind of is what it is, isn't it, really? And if it's not going to improve particularly, then people will ask further questions of it. But the reality is that Canelo's his own planet, isn't he? He's got his own gravitational field. He's got his own economy, his own ecosystem, everything. He calls the shots and he does what he wants. You can't make him do anything. And with Benavidez, he was quite dismissive, wasn't he? I read some comments along the lines of, people keep saying I should fight him. Why? Why should I fight him? Like, where's this pressure for me to kind of prove myself yet again by fighting him? What are you talking about? And he has that power, doesn't he?
The problem with that, and it's all right, and he can box because he's such a big star. He can box who he wants, and I got no problem with that. Box Jake Paul. Who cares? Do what you want to do. You've earned the right. You've had a stellar career. You've boxed some great fighters, and you've earned the right to do whatever you want to do in the sport. In a sport now where people are doing all sorts of stuff, he can fight anybody in competitive fights. Or fighters who are decent. Like Berlanga's a good fighter. He can fight Berlanga, but he's not David Benavidez. He's not him. That's the fight. To say you're the best super middleweight in the world, that's the fight. Though Benavidez is now a light heavyweight, isn't he? He ain't coming back down, so that fight's gone. There you go. But the reason is, give the titles up then.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't call yourself the unified undisputed until recently, but the unified champion, which you weren't deservedly. It might be the best fighter in the world, but you're picking who you want to fight. That makes a mockery of the whole system. I mean, you get to a level and you're a superstar and you're the best fighter. I pick who I want because I'm here. Okay, fair enough. You deserve this right, but that's not the structure of the sport. That goes against everything we all moan about all the time. You earn your right to fight, whether you're good enough to fight that champion or not, whether you're good enough to beat that champion or not. If you beat all the other challengers to get to number one, which always should be, is not, but always should be, then whether it's a one-sided beat down on paper and transpires to be that in reality, you still earned your shot.
Or whether or not it's a huge pay-per-view event or anything
or
like that.
Whether you got to take a pay cut. Yeah, it is what it is. Give the title up then. If you go, I'm not fighting Benavidez for 50 million when I can box Berlanga for 50 million. That makes total sense to me. It's an easier fight. But if he's and he's not anymore, but if he's not anymore, so we can argue that. But if he's your number one challenger, or mandatory, and you should fight him, and everyone wants it, and it's, then you have to fight him, like, or give your belt up. And
or there's just no point in having rankings. I know people are critical of rankings and how they're arrived at anyway, but there's just no point having them if getting to the top doesn't mean anything.
And that'll be the same with Inoue now with Akhmadaliev. He's his mandatory, isn't he?
Two. But
yeah. So then at some point you got to fight him or not, but don't fight him. Give the belt up, and maybe you can afford to, and that's fine. That's no problem with that. But then if people say you run from him, then it looks like you run from him, and it might be. And ultimately, it's all about money. I'll fight him if the money's not right. I'm not fighting him, but. And to say that he's a coward is ridiculous. Like some people have said, he's ducking him and all that. He is ducking him, and for a reason, because he's a young giant with a really good engine, and I'm an older guy now with not such a good engine, not as good as I was, but still brilliant. So why would I want him? That's fair enough. But then you have to go.
Yeah, it's always interesting, as we've spoken about this on numerous instances. But when you get to a certain level of fanfare and status as a Canelo or as an Inoue, unless it's the IBF, you kind of take these things with a pinch of salt, don't you? We've seen with the IBF, William Skull was ordered, he didn't want to win, he left. We've seen the IBF in numerous instances in the past, strip fighters. But I mean, David Benavidez, I remember being at the WBC convention in Acapulco, and then the next one in Tashkent, and he was still the mandatory challenger and still the interim champion, and both times the resolution was to be, if Benavidez was to beat, I think Andrade was one of the opponents, then he will be ordered, and it just, it doesn't really happen. And that's, I mean, not to sprawl and get into a big wide debate, but that's the problem with the sport, isn't it? Once you reach a certain level of influence and star power, you can dictate the terms.
And ultimately, it will always be the problem. Whoever gets a hold of the sport, they're talking about a league and all that, and all that sounds great, but ultimately, if one person or people have a favourite or someone's a financial cash cow like he is, then they get given certain luxuries that others won't. That's just life. That's just how it is. Otherwise, it is. People are not getting paid on how good they are. They're getting paid on how much they can sell. Otherwise, Bam Rodriguez is getting 25 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Why isn't he? You know what I mean?
Is I mean, again, trying to sort of look at both sides of it. Would you say Canelo in that regard? Because I mean, he's not the first, as we all know. Mayweather, De La Hoya, Packett. Everybody always kind of, you kind of just nudge things into your direction as you're the A side of the ledger. That is a real thing.
In the past, guys, I don't like. He don't like Benavidez. The same thing. I've seen other great fighters in the past. I don't like him. He getting a shot.
Yeah, he's been talking too much.
Basically, isn't
it? Yeah. But in that regard, is Canelo kind of, again, I sort of mentioned it earlier on, 5 of his last 8 opponents have all been unbeaten world champions. Yet there is this notion that he's not taking the best opposition. He's not doing this. He's not doing that.
There's a bogeyman there, and he's avoided him for right reasons. I understand that. And if you can avoid him because you've got all those belts and mandatories, then you can justify it by fighting and beating good fighters, which he has done. But now it's come to a point now where, I think he doesn't have to fight him because he's in a different weight, isn't he? So
I think at the minute they're still in a position whereby Benavidez
he can make super middleweight Benavidez. Well, he would for that, though, wouldn't he?
Yeah. And that's the point, isn't it? That's the only reason why he still has the interim title at super middleweight, because if for some reason Canelo wakes up and thinks, actually, do you know what? That David Benavidez, I'll fight him, no problem. Yeah. Then he's in position to do it.
So I think if he's not forced to do it, he won't do it. That's the truth. So, and the WBC are not going to force him to do anything. That's just reality, which is a shame. But it shouldn't be. Will it be a stain in his career? I don't think it will. I mean, right now it will, because we all talk about it. At the end of the day, he avoided Benavidez. But you look back at his career and go,
people won't remember it.
It's getting what
he boxed Mayweather at 21.
Also saying you can pick out anybody's resume and say, yeah, but this and that opponent, he was coming off the back of this, and he was fine at the weight. You can do that with anybody. It's one of the reasons that keeps us all in a job, because you can always debate and you can always pull different strands depending on what you're looking at. But yeah,
he boxed Golovkin and he was good enough that first fight against Golovkin. People will say, he left it a couple of years with Golovkin, but that was really good. Golovkin was brilliant still.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And at middleweight, he was in my mind, he was an underdog.
We do this every so often, and we're going to do it again. So we're going to go from his first world title fight, Canelo. Matthew Hatton, Ryan Rhodes, got the Brit Slayer, he loves it, doesn't he? Alfonso Gomez, Kermit Cintron, Shane Mosley, Josecito Lopez, Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather, Alfredo Angulo, Erislandy Lara, James Kirkland, Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, Liam Smith, Julio Cesar Chavez, Golovkin, Rocky Fielding, Daniel Jacobs, Sergey Kovalev, Callum Smith, Avni Yildirim, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Dmitry Bivol, Gennady Golovkin, John Ryder, Jamel Charlo, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga.
It's a fantastic list.
They're all back to back, so that is
They're all good fighters.
Yeah, over the course of the last 13 and a bit years.
But I guess the point is because he's so good, how many of those fights has he gone into where he hasn't been a heavy favourite?
And that's the argument that people will make on it. And that's what people will look at.
So they'll say, like, and you'll do this, and you do this with every fighter. Mosley passes somebody.
Saunders is really a middleweight.
Cotto really was at the end of his career. Really. Things like that. You didn't get him at their peak, but it's like, I got him, and I got him.
Yeah, and when you're really, really good, it's hard to make 50-50 fights for generational talents because, by definition, there aren't that many of them around. Hopefully, your career clashes or is going at the same time as somebody else's, and you can have an epic trilogy. But that's not always the case, is it? That's not always the case.
We'll come on and talk about kind of what next for the winner of Canelo versus Berlanga. I think we'll kind of picking Canelo to emerge victorious from that one. But it seems as though, Andy, I'm going to kind of come to you as I guess you're still our resident Saudi correspondent, having been out there for every show for the last couple of times. But anyway,
I've been every show.
Sorry, Barry. But anyway, it seems as though Canelo is one of the few, Andy, to resist the temptations, I guess, of the Middle East. It's been well documented, his kind of back and forth with Turkey Al Sheikh, but it seems as Canelo is, pretty content to do things his way.
It looks that way, and you can understand it because he is, as I described him, he is his own planet, and he's got everything in place there. There's nothing that he needs that he doesn't already have, and that makes him rare on planet boxing. But that is the case, and I think with Riyadh season, and Riyadh season being wherever they decide it is, whenever they decide it is, it's kind of a promotional name, isn't it, basically? Because people have asked me, so when actually is Riyadh season? And my answer is, it's wherever and whenever they decide it is. But as a name, it works because it's got the name in the title and all that kind of thing. It's kind of the second season for them, isn't it? It's almost like the Tricky second album in a way. They've already made some big fights. Wembley's going to be huge. That will be everywhere by the time we get to that week. I really think that's going to do tremendously well for everybody involved. And then better Bivol is a fight that we thought we would get earlier in the year. But again, undisputed one everybody wants, and the rematch and all that kind of thing. The immediate future, they're making some really good fights still. But when you're new and you're doing good things, everybody thinks you're absolutely amazing. And then when they get a bit more used to you, people start to criticise. And people start to dissent a little bit more, and you'll just face a bit more opposition. And that's what's happening. That's how the world works, isn't it? And the exchange between Canelo and Turki Al Sheikh I did find quite entertaining. You just never would have seen something like that in years gone by, obviously, because there would be no platform for people to air their laundry in public. But that's what happened. I still feel like they probably will be able to get him involved at some point, but I do also feel like it will be at least equally on his terms. So probably where he wants it to be. I think that might be the compromise that's coming down the line with that one. But it's kind of good in a way that you've got people within the sport who are big enough that they can decide that they don't need to, that they can't be dictated to, for want of a better word. There's not many of them around, but Gervonta Davis is another one, as you mentioned. He's got a rock solid money-making machine that he doesn't really need to
interfere with.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, but they're thin on the ground. But I feel like we will see Canelo boxing under that Riyadh season banner at some point. It's just a case of where it would be.
Now, the fight that Turki Al-Sheikh has been discussing, obviously the Benavidez fight is one of them, but the other one, Barry, is with a certain Terence Crawford, who of course we just saw win the WBA 154-pound title in a close fight against Israel Madrimov. Canelo's never really seemed too keen for that, but it feels like for different reasons than perhaps he's not keen on the Benavidez fight.
It's just, I don't. He gets no credit, does he?
No,
because he's so big. He's so much bigger. Though he can argue that, and maybe he should. I was a welterweight, but Crawford was a lightweight.
When he was 12, boxing in Tijuana.
But he was. He turned pros. Went in the fights in America as a welterweight.
He boxed Miguel Vasquez in his third fight.
Yeah.
And it was sort of great.
He boxed Cotto's brother at one of the one times he looked really vulnerable actually. At welterweight. So it's but yeah, it's you just think well, if I beat him, I beat up a guy who's much smaller than me. But it's one of those intriguing fights that would be a super fight because of who they both are.
Do you have any interest in it? Obviously, there is the huge weight disparity. We saw Crawford win, pick up a title at 54.
I sort of ashamedly do a little bit.
It has that freak show element to it, doesn't it?
It's impossible not to be interested in it.
You want to see what it looks like, wouldn't you?
It's two big planets colliding.
Well, fantasy fights are not fantasy anymore, are they? Since the Saudis got involved, fights are happening that we didn't think we'd see happen because money was a factor. Money was the reason they weren't going to happen. Like Bivol better BF, that was never going to happen because they both wanted too much money and they wouldn't get. Always going to pay for itself.
Exactly.
Because they're not from the regions where the people are paying for.
No.
America and the UK mainly, and the pay-per-view market mainly. So I think I'm right with that, aren't I? I don't want to upset anybody. So who's going to want to watch that? There's no public interest outside of the boxing fraternity world. So but now we're seeing it. It's one of the best fights, maybe arguably the best fight in world boxing. So we get to see it because someone's going to bankroll it, and I presume will lose money on it. But maybe maybe you lose money. Every business lose money when they first start, don't they? With the investment to gain money, hopefully, and maybe that's what it is. I don't know. That's not my business. But we're getting to see the fights. So as a boxing fan, boxing fans now, because of social media and all the rest of it, we're all interested in. You got boxing fans say, "Nah, that's not worth it for him financially. That fight." What do you give a shit? It's a good fight. Let's watch it. Yeah. I don't care. We shouldn't care what a fighter gets paid. We shouldn't care what happens to a fighter. No, it's horrible. This is going to sound horrible. Whether he walks away in the sport with millions or nothing. That's his business. That's her business. Their business. We should be interested. We as boxing fans, we want to see good fights. We don't want to see no one get hurt. I want to see every boxer on the planet be a millionaire and go away with not a mark on him and win all. We're all a world champion. We all live happily ever after. We all want that. But that's not going to happen. So as a boxing fan, we want to see good fights because we're paying. Whether subscriptions or pay-per-view and pay-per-view, and we go to the events and pay with our tickets and with our feet, and we go there and watch them and we support them and we're fans of it, and that's all it was before social media. No one talked about purses. No one talked about anything else except for we want to see the best fight the best.
No one really talked that much about promoters either, did they? It was all about fighters, and now it's kind of the landscape.
More about promoters now. The promoters are more the most famous people in the arenas now.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't care about that. Whatever sells the fight, doesn't it? Whatever keeps the sport alive. But I do think that we just want to see the best fight the best. We shouldn't worry about money and what happens. And I can't remember what your question was.
We were talking about Crawford Canelo, but that's okay. It's all right.
But that's the reason that fight will happen. The freak fights. That fight will. I think that fight might very well happen because someone will say, "There you go. How much Canelo? I don't want to fight him. What am I fight him for?" No, he wants it Crawford because he thinks he can beat everybody. Why wouldn't he? Because he's brilliant, and also he's thinking that's the one that I go goodbye. Yeah, because he's 37, isn't he? So he's gonna. That's the big fight. No, because Canelo fights are like everyone thinks they get Canelo money and they don't. They get more money than they've ever earned before. So if Canelo gets 30 million, you're getting 4.
But if you're a star like Crawford and you're bringing that to the table as well,
you're getting 30 million.
Money as well. Yeah.
So it will happen. I think it'll happen.
Because the kind of the timeline of events, as it were, last time was that I have to make sure it gets right. Was that Canelo had said that he'd been asked to essentially discuss a Crawford fight or a fight, but he'd already had the Berlanga fight signed. He wanted to make sure, I'm focused on the Berlanga fight and didn't want to kind of have any other discussions. didn't really come out and say it's off the table, Canelo, just that he didn't want to discuss it while engaged with a promotion for the fight with Edgar Berlanga.
And Turkey, I think, just wanted to show his dominance, didn't he? But go, whoa, hang on.
But is that going to be a problem? Is that going to because
it might be a problem? But
as Andy mentioned there are only a select few, but he is very much one of them.
But everyone has to yield. Somebody has to yield somewhere, and it might be Canelo, because ultimately this guy is saying, "I'm giving you money. You're not giving me anything. I'm giving it to you. So if you want it, you have to compromise it for me." So that might be you have to fight Crawford in Riyadh or somewhere else in Saudi. They might decide to go somewhere else, which would be what's wrong with that? But you take the money, wouldn't you? I think you tend to think that fight should be in the States. But why not in Mexico then? Because Canelo's really a Mexican. No, luckily we got Joshua, like the Fury and Usyk. That's gone. The second one's going to be in Riyadh as well. And we don't care, do we? We're happy to see it. We'd like to be. You think it'd be great if it's in the UK, but as long as we're seeing it, we're seeing it.
But even the prospect of Fury Joshua, if Fury were to beat Usyk, I heard Eddie say the other day that if that happened, it would be one in Riyadh, one in the UK.
He's fucking saying that for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I know. But it's just quite telling, isn't it? That,
I know what you mean.
Were it to happen, that would have to be how it would happen. And you'd think that the bigger prestige fight there is the first one, and you would expect that the first one would be in Riyadh rather than here. Yeah, I would anyway.
Yeah. And also it's difficult enough to get one fight before we start talking about, particularly with those guys, talk about the second fight.
But I'm not the division of it is quite telling, isn't it? That this is where we are now. Yeah. And it could easily be the case that you've got to give Turki Al-Sheikh credit for recognising the fact that coming to Wembley and going to LA and making a commitment. I don't think he's expressly said it, but I think he's alluded to it, that that's the way he would want things to be going forward, that it can't all be in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't want it all to be in Saudi Arabia. He could easily say, listen, it's all in Saudi Arabia.
But he'll take the jewels.
Yeah, of course.
The big ones are going to go there, because that's his prerogative, isn't it? But the thing is, some of that Fury Joshua fight, it's more realistic now than ever before.
Fury needs to beat Usyk ideally.
Joshua needs to beat Dubois.
Yes, absolutely.
Which we'll come on to and discuss next week.
But no, what I'm saying is though that fight might happen anyway, though, regardless of who wins. Because if I think we still want to see it. Even if they both got beat, we still want to see it. It might not be the same fight that it was, but we still like to see him fight, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And so there's someone there who can make it happen. That's the thing, because all that I want this much, I want that much. You're gonna go, well, what if I give you both that much? Yeah. They go, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll fight anyone. And ultimately, they're prize fighters. They're in it for make money, innit? So let them learn what they can earn, and then trickle it down to the rest of us. That's my worry, is the money don't trickle down like it never does in any sport. The Premiership's the biggest, most expensive league in the history of the football, but it doesn't trickle down to League 3, does it? Or if it's still in League 2 and all the rest of it, they're not getting the benefit of it. I don't think. I don't follow football, but that's why. And I don't think the undercards are getting the same money.
I think that's something that he is that Turki Al-Sheikh is a bit concerned about, to be honest, is that where is all this money going that he's paying out? I think he is. I'm
not surprised.
Because you want some transparency, but you're not necessarily going to get it. They'll pay what they pay, and then what happens to it after that hasn't really been their business. But I get the feeling like he probably does want to make it his business to an extent, because he doesn't just want to see it trousered, never to see the light of day again, and maybe not as much of it go to the people it should go to, because that happens. We all know that happens. That's always happened. That's not some kind of world exclusive. But I think that is something that's in his mind, that you don't want a situation where it doesn't trickle down, like you say, and the sport as a whole doesn't benefit from what they're doing.
Just on Canelo, before we move on, talk about the undercard, a few very interesting bouts on there. Again, we've kind of had this conversation probably every 6 months or so when he does box. Barry, going to come to you first. I know it's as much of a mythical thing as the pound for pound list, but this notion of being the face of boxing has become like a big thing over the last year, 18 months. And whether or not that's because, in the kind of the established face of boxing, and Canelo is coming towards the end of his career, which of course, we've seen some of the backlash to some of his recent opponents.
Would you say that it is and has been him for a period of time? Because it depends on where you are, I suppose, doesn't it?
I think global boxing. I think so. Yeah,
Global
I think it's
boxing,
got to be.
agree. I would agree.
But now, are we at the precipice?
When Joshua was going Wembley, Cardiff, Wembley,
Yeah.
and collecting those titles, I mean, he was pretty massive, wasn't he?
He was big. The kind of the drawback to that was that he didn't have those big US pay-per-view fights. Didn't have the Deontay Wilder fight. Obviously, the Fury fight we're still hopeful on. And of course, his big coming to America party was spoiled by a certain Andy Ruiz Jr. as we all remember on that night in New York. But Barry, do we feel like is Canelo still the guy? Do you feel he's still the man?
I think he's still the face. I think he's gone down the list. You know, when you go to a pay-per-view fight stat, pound for pound stats, he's gone down the list, I think, dramatically. But he's still the face of boxing. Still the biggest draw. He's still we're talking about. We just spent an hour long talking about him.
Talking about for a fight that we've all said that we're not interested in.
The first thing we said, they can't see he was going to win,
yeah.
And then we talked about him with all the other things that could happen around him, you know, and then defending his legacy of, I hate the word, I shouldn't have said it. Defending the resume that he has, because it is stellar, and then criticising some of the things that he hasn't done and couldn't do, and so he is the face of boxing.
Can I just ask, do either of you think, because we had Chris Eubank in at Sky a few weeks ago, Andy Scott was away, so I was doing the we were doing the podcast, and he seems he seems fairly
talking about Eubank
convinced that he can get Canelo at Wembley next May.
And Andy's sitting there going,
chance?
You can do it.
Come on, Chris.
It's finally going to be my year. I can tell them. I picked you to win a world title in 2018.
Do you think there's any chance of that happening?
I mean, Canelo has always said in the past that he would love to box in the UK. He loves UK boxing fans, and he loves this and he loves that. Ultimately, it will come down to the money, won't it? As it always does.
If it's a Riyadh season show, who knows? If they're going to come to Wembley once a year or something like that. I
mean, it's difficult because in Canelo and Eubank, you've got two of the most difficult fighters to second guess in the entire sport. You know,
it's the right fighter though to fight him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to box in the UK, it can't be anybody else, can it? It would have to be Chris Eubank Jr.
I mean, even if it was a better fighter, I think Eubank is the right fight for him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you look at some of the guys that some of the guys that have been kind of in and around the weight over the years who have boxed Canelo, you know, with respect to Eubank Jr. Billy Joe Saunders already beat Eubank Jr. Callum Smith at the time, considered by many to be the best super middleweight in the world before he boxed Canelo. So yeah, that would work. But it's difficult, isn't it, with Chris Eubank Jr. because we hear these things and we hear he's boxing Kamel Jaramita on the October the 12th card, which Kamel Jaramita is a very capable European-ish level guy,
and he's been on for a while, and stuff. So
but on the back again, we have a very similar conversation with around Canelo. It seems over the last couple of years, and it seems the same with Eubank Jr. as well. You feel like he's on the after the Liam Smith rematch. It was best win of his career, best performance. Go and do this, go and do that, and he hasn't quite.
And that's fine, and he's criticised for that. But I mean, he's not holding anyone's career up.
No.
He's not holding belts to ransom, and he's not making a mockery of the rating systems by not saying Canelo is, but by refusing to fight one guy who's clearly the one you should fight, and or as your mandatory challenger. He's not doing that. He's just boxing who he wants to box with, and he wants to box. I'm sure he wants to be a world champion, but I think for him, the bigger, more financial fights are more important, and who can blame him? But
that's the way he's always done it.
Yeah,
isn't it? He's been totally consistent with that. You can't criticise him for that because at no point has he ever really suggested that he's going to do anything other than that.
And he can argue he was a world champion because he beat Chudanov, didn't he, for the regular or interim title back in 2006.
Yeah, he's had
2015, whatever it was. Well, 15 something. I did the fight.
Interim bout and I think he's had the regular title.
Yeah, so we don't call him a world champion. I don't think he has been, but
the IBO champion a couple of times.
Yeah, but we don't really recognise that as one of the established ones, unfortunately. But he can always argue he has got a belt in his house or two. And you go, well, I was a world champion. What's that then? Maybe he can sell it that way, can he? But listen, like Ben and Eubank, as good as fighters they were. They stayed away from fighters as well. This is not an exclusive thing.
I don't think it really matters to him, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think he's bothered by that per se. It's just whether or not.
I think he would. I think all this fight. He's making money. He's doing the right thing.
If ever there was one who wouldn't be bothered about something traditional like that, though, it would be him.
You would think so. Yeah, you would think so. He's very much danced to the beat of his own drum, and there's been opportunities in the past. The Janibek Alim Hanoli fight was one that was very, very close at certain points of the last couple of years, and who knows as to the reasons and the motivations behind those fights not happening. But it seems as though Eubank has always been about the biggest fight rather than necessarily, always been about the biggest prize, but the prize being the pay packet as opposed to a belt that may or may not mean something to people in the future. If you tell somebody that Chris Eubank Jr. is fighting, your average man on the street who's watching the boxing because he likes the football, is he going, is it for the WBA interim or is it for the full belt?
Yeah,
fuck, no one cares.
And that's exactly the point, isn't it? Is that there's not that many fighters who the more casual sporting public know, but he is one of them.
Okay, right. We have discussed the main event. We will talk about the undercard and some of the offerings for this weekend. One fight in particular that I'm very much looking forward to, kind of in a very, again, sort of perverse, peculiar kind of way that I just want to see what it looks like, Barry, is for the WBA middleweight title, which will be contested at a catch weight of 157 pounds between Erislandy Lara and two-weight world champion. I was thinking of mine when people say former two-weight world champion. He's still a two-weight world champion, but not current champion. Andy, I know appreciates that. He loves that. Danny Garcia.
What did he say?
Don't worry. Erislandy Lara versus Danny Garcia at 157 pounds. Not really sure what to expect from this one, Barry.
I can't believe they're still alive. I love boxing.
Danny Garcia, the younger, fresher man.
Yeah, no, it's mad, isn't it? Was Erislandy Lara?
Officially 41.
He says 50. Yeah.
and
and what's Garcia? He got to be 38. 36. That's all he is.
Yeah. Hasn't boxed in 2 years. His last his last win coming against Jose Benavides Jr. in July.
I know a middleweight, which is why I know he's dragging Lara down a little bit there, but
Lara not a fully fledged middleweight though, is he?
No, he's been in the middleweight for a while now, haven't he?
Yeah,
to be honest,
3 or 4 fights.
Yeah. Maybe, it's a weird fight. I don't know what I'm going to get from Garcia. I don't think at super welterweight he was that good.
I mean, at welterweight, there's an argument for kind of him not having been anywhere near the same as effective at 147 as he was at 140.
Explosive, wasn't he, at 140?
140, he could really punch.
Yeah.
Like, he had genuine one-punch power at 40, whereas at 47, he was kind of more of a thudding,
and he'd
get your respect power, but not lights out.
He'd move off the punches when he hit you as well, so he'd go bam, bam, he'd move around and then hit you again. He was good. But, he's still good at welterweight, but... So, I think Lara beats him quite comfortable, actually. It's with Lara, again with him, you don't know what he's going to do you?
Well, it's a fight that I kind of felt like in maybe not recent years, in bygone years, the style of Lara at 54 especially, like lateral movement, long straight punches,
smooth,
would be a real hard night's work for Danny Garcia. I mean, we've seen Garcia in the past struggle with movement. Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Mauricio Herrera. But now Lara likes to stand there and have it a little bit more.
So
his legs have it, so you would feel like that potentially plays into Garcia's hands a little bit more.
I see when you get a bit older, you slow down, but also you don't want to be so negative. I think it's that the eagerness to I think you could just block and counter more, but you need a more negative Lara the more negative Lara that we've seen in the past. The one that gave Canelo kittens, by the way, don't forget that, plays with Danny Garcia. The one we've seen from a few years ago. Unless he's come back as a new man, I don't really see what he does, to be honest. But again, if Lara stands and holds his feet, he got a chance. But even then, I fancy Lara, to be fair. If anything, because you can't just be inactive for a couple of years and be out. And even then, he wasn't that active when he was fighting.
Well, no, his last bout was against Jose Benavides Jr. and before then was 18 months prior against Errol Spence.
Yeah, use it or lose it, they say. I think that might be the case. Especially at this age. I think when you get to a certain age, you don't want to be boxing all the time because the camps ruin your body. So it's not such a bad thing. But when you don't fight at all, unless you're living a real disciplined life for those years you're out, I'm not saying you're out taking drugs and drinking all the time, but just eating wrong foods and all that stuff, getting your body out the sink. Having to get back into that, you'll get back and get fit and lose the weight, but you don't have the same sharpness and awareness that you used to have. So I surprised he's come back, really, but so I don't.
I mean, how's he got this fight?
It's a very good question, and it's something that has been discussed at great length. They've been discussing it for a while. This fight is, I think it's had a few false dawns on a few kind of mooted pay-per-view shows in the past. But it's a good question. Danny Garcia is yet to box above 154 pounds. Goes into
He's a name. I understand the
I mean, the game is the game, isn't it? Like that it's happening because Danny Garcia can sell a ticket.
That's always a vague but satisfactory explanation for so many things in boxing. It's I wonder whether it's as simple as he's seen the emergence of Riyadh season and the Saudi revolution and thought to himself, why don't I just come back, get a big fight? If I can win it, then sign me up. Go and have one in Saudi and then ride off into the sunset. Because I've always been a bit of a fan, to be honest, because you look at the list of people he's boxed, it's pretty good, isn't it?
Really,
he was good. When he was good, he was good.
Good fighter, really good fighter. He had a bit of luck with the timing of his career with PBC and things like that. He must have done really well financially, but he deserved to because he never really avoided anybody that I can think of.
Two big, massive underdog wins against Amir Khan and Lucas Matisse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so you look at him,
Mayweather Canelo on the card.
And I enjoyed the double act of him and his old man. You kind of felt like it might go south at any given moment, but I think it was much, much more stable than other father-son relationships we've seen, in that I'd love to have heard a conversation behind closed doors between those two where they'll almost sit down and plan, right, the press conference I'm going to go off as normal, and he'll just sit there kind of looking at his phone just go, yeah, fine, yeah, no worries, and actually that was really quite almost a stabilising force for him, because he knew what his dad would do. He was totally happy with it. They knew their roles, and it did take the heat off him a bit. Yeah. So the whole thing has just been an extraordinary success, really. And I just wonder whether he's looked at it and just thought, I feel like I can fight again, so I'll take this fight to see if we could get a big fight. They've managed to get a big fight. And then, hey, look, I definitely feel like I could win. They've managed to get it at 157, which was pretty important for them, I would imagine. Sure. Definitely better than being at 160. Would have come from him,
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Aristotle Lara wasn't going, no, I'll give you £3.
And maybe I can win it, and if I can win it, then, why wouldn't they want to take me over to Riyadh or whatever?
It'd be interesting to see what happens with him after this. I spoke to him on Friday for Boxing News, getting it in your Boxing News magazine this week. And he's... Please. And I got the impression from him that this is going to be the last dance. That this is the last one he wanted.
Not if he wins.
Oh no, because Crawford's around that way, didn't he? He hasn't come back for this one fight. He's come back for the purpose for it. Like Danny said, there's a reason for it.
I think he's financially very secure.
Oh no, so do I. But I just think he'll have looked at Saudi maybe and just thought that won't necessarily have been the only reason, but I think it might have been a factor, because. Why wouldn't you, when you've been as good as he's been for as long as he's been, why wouldn't you just try and jump on that train when it's still doable for him? And it is doable for him if he wins.
You think if I can beat this 55-year-old man now, right, who's good, but you'll think he fancy would have beat him anyway, wouldn't he? So if I can beat him, then.
And that division's open, isn't it?
Crawford, no, the Crawford fight is actually very. I hadn't really thought about that. That makes a lot of sense. You've got two naturally lighter guys,
and it might not be, and it might be for super welter rather than middleweight.
And Crawford at boxing at 157 would be perfect.
No, exactly. Perfect, yeah, gives him another weight thing, and that's a fight that everyone would be half interested in. I think and the build-up would be good because of Danny's dad.
I'm not sure he'd do that with Terence Crawford though.
Well, he would do it.
He might have to take a deep breath before he emerged onto stage. Again, the big backstage around that stuff would be great. I see him standing there just go...
Well, that's a fight I go over there. I go over there for that fight. Just for the whole build-up would be fantastic.
I mean, obviously...
the fight's just a one-sided fight.
I was going to say, we're getting very, very much ahead of ourselves.
No, but I think
you wouldn't imagine it being a very competitive fight.
No, but that's the reason. You think that might possibly be a reason for it, because you just think there's one of the biggest stars in world boxing, around my weight. Look, with no obvious challenger, certainly a big name, and he is still a big name because we're talking about him. So
Yeah. And in his head, he'll be thinking, God, I'd fight Crawford, but you'd really have to pay me. Well, there's somebody around who can do that.
Someone will definitely pay you for it, yeah. Really interesting fight. I don't really know what we're going to see. I would feel like if we're going based on on what we've seen of him in the last couple of years. You've got one guy in Erislandy Lara who's been, chinning decent enough-ish guys, and one guy in Danny Garcia who hasn't boxed. I think it's a fight that, if we're going on form, only really has one winner. But Lara is the wrong side of 50, as Barry kind of alluded to there.
It's a bold pick to pick Garcia, though.
There's
he
no
boxed twice
evidence.
in 2020, didn't he? Not at all in 2020. Well, once, like you said, in 2022. None in 2020. It is essentially his fourth fight in basically 5 years.
Yeah, and up way above the weight that we've seen him effective in the past. But yeah, you'd feel like if Lara holds his feet, and maybe that can give Garcia a chance.
Yeah.
If Lara has his legs, then I think that's a really hard fight. You think about over the years, the fighters that have really given Garcia problems, even Kiefer, even Sean Porter, who's kind of come forward, smash mouth, elbows and head, boxed on the outside against him.
Yeah, fast feet. See?
Yeah, just box on the outside against him and make Danny lead and make him come forward. He's historically a counter puncher, making him lead. And he's got heavy feet as well. If you think about somebody like that trying to cut the ring off against Lara.
He plants his feet to knock you out, then he squares himself up to knock you out quite often. He swings into his shots. Even though Lara is 60, right?
It's getting older every 10 minutes.
But Cuban clock. But he can box on autopilot. He can. All the Cubans can they? That movement, that slipping aside, that little pivot, no punching, no long hooks and spinning off. He can do that with his eyes closed. Yeah. So, and that's how he could beat Danny Garcia with no worry at all that he's going to close the gap. Unless Garcia is a different animal now. You just don't know. But you're going off blind faith there, aren't you, to expect that of Danny Garcia. So you tend to think that it's a Lara shutout.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Danny Garcia well, that's it. Danny Garcia got really good chin, but at 40 and 47. Yeah. Lara has shown that, I mean, even when he was at 54, he's got a classic Cuban record, hasn't he? You either go in really early or he's just going to win every round. Like, he's going to get rid of you. And like Rigondeaux was the same. The amount of, like, if you look at, I did this the other day because I'm sad. I look at Lara's record and Rigondeaux's record. There's either KO1, TKO2, or points. UD10, UD12. And you just wonder, Garcia has never been dropped. He's been in there with some decent hitters and decent punchers, but up at 160, 157, but up at a new weight against the guy who can punch. Going to be interesting to see what happens early on in that fight, I think.
Yeah.
And it's possible that he won't really know what's left. He won't really know. And it's possible that he'll turn up on a night Garcia and it'll all feel like very hard work from the very beginning. He'll be under it a bit from the beginning. And he'll find out on the night in the ring that it's just not there anymore. And his dad will pull him out at some stage. That's a distinct possibility.
I got a theory. It's only a theory because I didn't box later into my career. But I know people say that the chin's gone. I might have said before to you, I don't think it's your chin. I think it's your vision.
I do as well.
And I don't think it's like, I don't think you can anticipate, but you just see it a little bit too late. Before you'd see the punch from here, and your mind, you'd see it from here, and you just either you could slip, move, or tense. One of the things you just do naturally anyway. You aren't going to be a boxer to do that. You see it, if you haven't got the ability to get out of the way, you just naturally tense up, don't you? Shit. But like, I think they see it from here. Too late. So you haven't got time to do anything.
I think it's your reaction time to everything, basically. Your reaction time to seeing an opening isn't what it was, so you don't land. Your reaction time to seeing something coming isn't the same as it was, so it does land. And it's fractions.
Yeah, it's so small that I think you don't notice it in the gym. So when they go, the training's gone great, and it generally hasn't. They're fit and strong. And sometimes when you get a bit older, you feel physically stronger. You go, actually, I think I'm better than I was before. But actually on fight night, where everything's just so much sharper, the gloves are small, everything's quicker. He's a better opponent than you are sparring against usually. Yeah. Or if not better, sharper because it's a real fight. Where sparring is not a real fight. And I just think, it's that little fraction of it, the time difference. It's just, go actually,
And that like, I'm not a doctor, but like physiologically, surely that makes the most sense, doesn't it? As you get older, there are certain things you can.
I wouldn't be shocked if you were a doctor.
You can slow their decline. You can slow the decline by living the life, but as you get older, your reflexes just get slower. That's just what happens.
Yeah, we can shit about that. We're going to call you the doc from now on.
The doc.
The doc. Like they do that in America, don't they? Like the general, remember?
Hey, doc.
People can call him with medical problems. Give them terrible advice.
11 years to the day this weekend, this Saturday, since Danny Garcia beat Lucas Matisse. 11 years.
Wow.
11 years.
That was a Boxing Nation special, wasn't it? I'm sure it was.
Yeah, it was.
I love Matisse. Remember that fight he had with John Molina.
Yeah. Molina was in some really good fights. He was another one from the PBC kind of the launch. He boxed
Those
all of the
cards,
PBC
you
guys.
must have done
John Molina's one of the biggest head on the planet, isn't he?
Yeah,
massive.
he looked like
massive.
Yeah, he looked like one of those little figurines.
His head was different colour to his body.
But those
Go back and watch John Molina.
That for me was kind of what I remember with. Well, I mean, I remember Boxing Nation with affection from top to bottom, but
Thanks.
Those PBC years where you basically did all of those fights, didn't you? Because no one else was.
They must have been giving them to us, really.
Yeah, you'd announce it like on a Tuesday, and we'd all be sitting around just thinking, Box Nation, get this on.
Just get it on the Thursday.
And then they'd announce it on the Thursday.
We didn't know. That's right. No one.
Exactly.
That's what it was, wasn't it? It was all just late money, like to get it as cheap as they could.
Good.
11 years, man. Wow.
11 years. One of the Matisse fights I remember was when he knocked out Lamont Peterson. He hits him with a left hook as he's turning, and Lamont Peterson's out on the floor.
Yeah.
Really, really good fighter. Right, going to touch on the last couple of little bits and pieces on that card before we draw this episode to a close. I see the return of Caleb Plant. I think everybody likes Caleb Plant. I think everybody's he's sort of like one of those guys who's universally he's been kind of he's had that stamp of approval.
He was.
He did, yeah. So I've got the recording of that on my laptop as it happens because we spoke to Plant before then, and I went to kind of, as you do, downloaded the file and kind of skipped. Oh, Carl Froch. I was listening to what Carl Froch said, and Carl Froch going, "No, I had a really good chin." I was like, "Right, that's enough of that." shout out Carl Froch. I do actually want to go back and look at that, but I did find it hilarious.
But funnily enough, just regarding what you were saying there about it's the peripheral vision and the reactions that slow down. That's exactly what he said to me when I asked him. I was talking to him about Froch Groves, predictably.
What for?
And strange you might ask. And he said that, I know that he started training for Chavez and stuff like that, but he said that actually he always knew that second Groves fight was his last one because he had just noticed in the gym that fraction had gone. He was getting caught with punches that he didn't used to, and he wasn't quite landing when he knew that he used to. And as soon as he saw that, he thought, "Now I'm done." And for him, that's what it was.
Wow, yeah.
And if you want to hear more, listen to Carl Froch's podcast every week. Got Caleb Plant on there this week. I heard it's a real good one.
Oh, download the audio book of this. What's it called again?
The Knockout.
I would know that. That's like a swear word to me. That is.
Barry's got
never had one.
Yeah, the sequel, The Decision, coming out soon, available at all good bookstores. But yes, the return of Caleb Plant against Trevor Magumby, who's not somebody I'm tremendously familiar with, I have to say. But Caleb Plant kind of in that position now, Barry, where, for all of the respect that he's gained and all of the balls really he's shown in and out of the ring, kind of has more fights on the outside of the ring than he does inside it nowadays. He has still lost those big marquee events, those big bouts against Canelo Alvarez, David Benavidez, but obviously one win away from getting himself back in the picture.
And they're extremely good fighters. Yeah. So, and he's not afraid to fight anybody. That's a good thing about him. But yeah, another loss, and especially another loss now down at a lower level, makes him a harder sell. He starts becoming... It's weird, because you just think, if he wins, then his career goes on, he gets better, he's still as good, he gets better. If he loses, then people want to start picking him apart. People who you wouldn't. So if he wins, there'd be fighters who wouldn't want to go near him. But if he loses, those same fighters will fancy fighting him.
Yeah.
But he might just lose a close fight, but still he could, because it's just psychologically maybe it does something to you. You just go, you know what, I just don't just can't do it. Like in your mind, something must change for you. Maybe if you just start getting beaten another time. Just think I haven't got that same ambition, or you just question. I don't know what it's like. You question yourself, maybe. I mean, because there must be those losing against them two. You can't really. That doesn't mean you're a bad fighter, does it?
Actually, Garcia said something really interesting the other day. I don't know. It might have been to Boxing News where somebody said to him, "I see if you still got the same hunger as you used to have," and he just very honestly said, "No, no one's got the same hunger."
That's a great line. I wish
no one's
did
got
say
the same
to
hunger at 36 as they had when they were 21. And if they say they have, then they're not really telling you the truth. It doesn't mean I don't want it, but simply no.
Well, your goals change, don't they? Like some people win a world title. Richard Woodward always talks about this, and it's the same for a lot of them. But you win a world title, just once I won it, I almost was done. It was such a toll to get there. Like it is for all the journey, it's better than it's more exciting than the destination. Just want to get it. When he got it, He still tried to fight, defend it a couple of times, didn't he?
Make the money.
But yeah, but
your ambitions. We've spoken about this in the past. Your ambitions change. It's like, okay, well, George Groves, like, he gets to win the world title. He's like, okay, I've done it now. I just want to make money. But like what you've said there about kind of fighters who like that's their everything. That is the complete. So what really sometimes annoys me, it's a very very petty thing, but I'm a petty man. It's like sometimes you're getting a post-fight interview and it's like, so what's it for you, world champion? He's like, well, I knew I was going to do this. It's just the first step. We're going to go on to bigger and better things. Like, mate, just be happy. Come on, you don't have to. You don't have to play the PR side all the time.
I'm not a fan of listening to that either. Because
I want to see tears. I want to see all of it.
But the reaction that people give to winning a really big fight and realising a dream is it can be really, really varied. For some people, it is that explosion of joy. Others, it's just pure relief that they've got over the line. And it seems a bit joyless sometimes. A lot of the time, they don't really know what to do because it's been this kind of like beacon in the distance for such a long time that now once you get there, you just kind of look around.
It can be an anticlimax, a little bit.
A lot of people say they wake up the next morning and they feel like you just described, that sense of purpose that they've always had is kind of gone.
Well, some people will wake up and it's not what they thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then all of the I'm fulfilled, and it turns out
mine was weird. Necessarily. The morning after my world, I pushed all the girls off the bed. Right? That was it. I just wanted to say that. It might have been true. Might have been. It wasn't.
But Caleb Plant is in that kind of position now. It's the kind of the margins in boxing are so extreme, aren't they? Where you can be one fight away from either becoming, getting yourself back in the shake-up. He's a big enough name at super middleweight. You think about kind of Canelo, Benavidez. After that, he's right there, isn't he? So if those belts do become fractured, he could fight for a vacant title
and win one as well. Yeah. I think but
if he loses,
he got loads of skill. He's not a massive puncher, but he punches hard enough. I think he got loads of skill. He got good feet, and he's tough. They're good ingredients here. They're ingredients of a world champion. So I know McCumbee can punch a bit. I haven't seen much of him. He can punch, but at what level? So you find out if that power is real. But more than that, he's gonna have to slow down and block off Caleb Plant. And more importantly, Caleb Plant punches in spurts as well, and that's hard. So you throw one, he goes bang 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 straight away, and then moves off you. So that's very difficult. So for me, I think Plant's a huge favourite. He got to be, haven't he? So. Yeah, he was expecting to put on a bit of a display.
But there are some fights there for him, Andy. I mean, one fighter that he's been going back and forth with, probably focus on what he's doing, is Edgar Berlanga. They've been arguing with each other. Edgar Berlanga's arguing with everybody. Canelo, Caleb Plant, whoever, anyone can get it. That seems like a reasonable fight if, what we expect to happen this weekend happens, which is Caleb Plant to win and Edgar Berlanga, unfortunately, to not. There's also Christian and Billy, well ranked across the board. I quite like that fight. Diego Pacheco.
There are.
He was good.
There are options.
Pacheco.
There are definitely options, and he's doing it still because he wants to, isn't he?
Yeah.
He'll have done well financially. He's still got some ambition, and again, I'm not saying this is the reason for absolutely everybody, but there is always that possibility that you will get the call to go and have a big fight in Riyadh or as part of a Riyadh season card. That's distinctly possible for somebody like him.
Him and Munguia's a good fight.
I was just about to say Munguia's boxing Eric Bazinian on the 20th, so next Friday. Bazinian's a decent fighter.
I'm not sure Wilson Billy how good he is.
It's hard to know, isn't it?
He's incredibly raw, isn't he? He's great to watch, though. Whether you think he's good or not, he's brilliant to watch.
Him and Munguia's a good fight.
Him and Kevin Lely Sajo is a great fight.
I think he'd hammer Sajo.
I love that fight, though.
I think he'd hammer Sajo.
Two really aggressive sort of French guys. Because you got one of those Canadian ones for him.
It absolutely would be a good
Bonjour.
Fight. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. There's Osles Iglesias as well. He's very good. He boxed on the...
Great singer.
He boxed on the... Who did he box?
Julio box.
Who did he box? He boxed somebody recently. It was on the Mbili card. And he won in 2 rounds, I think. Another kind of Cuban destroyer. I really like the kind of like the
Billy's one of these guys, isn't he? Where you look at him and like we just said, he does seem raw. He's rugged. There are flaws, but who's going to exploit them then? Who's going to do it? It's going to be a tough. Yeah.
Like him and Munguia is a great fight. Two really reckless, offensive fighters.
Munguia got a box, haven't he?
Yeah. You have to. Yeah. Oh, that's a really, really good fight. Right, okay. Well, we look forward to seeing what happens with Caleb Plant. But I do feel like, come through okay this weekend, and there should be some interesting fights for him. There's kind of that tier, isn't there, where it's like you've got Canelo right behind him, Benavidez, and you've got sort of the rest who are looking up at that group trying
He's
to...
Dave
to
Russell.
Light heavyweight now.
He's gone.
As soon as he said Benavidez is chasing Canelo, I'm chasing Benavidez. So Benavidez went up to light heavyweight. He went up to light heavyweight. That must be great, isn't it, David Benavidez? Like, so it's literally exactly the same thing is happening to him with David Morrell as it is with him and Canelo.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. There we go. Right, okay, and the last but by no means least fighter that we will discuss is the former super lightweight champion, the former WBA super lightweight champion, Rolando Romero, who makes his return to the ring, his first bout since, of course, losing his title to the now former champion in Isaac Cruz in March of this year. Are we Rolly fans in the pot? I'm not sure. Do we like? Are we Team Rolly or are we not Team Rolly? Where do we stand here?
I'm not Team Rolly, but I'm not a fan of his attitude.
I quite enjoy watching him though.
But he's a good fighter, actually, isn't he? Yeah. He's a good fighter. He's aggressive and he's committed. Makes him loads of mistakes, mind, but he has the power to get away with it. That's the thing for him.
Seems like he's been, afforded this opportunity on the card. Obviously, he's somebody who's very well known from his exploits. And he's kind of one of those fighters. I heard somebody once refer to him as like this era's Ricardo Mayorga, and I quite enjoyed it. Where it's like somebody who's going to come, play their part, sell the fight, be aggressive, but ultimately, lose more than he wins, should we say?
But he hasn't yet.
Not yet.
So,
had those the two big bouts you could argue that he has. Obviously, Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz. But against Manuel James this weekend, it seems an opponent for him to look good against and to really try and get himself back in a position to challenge either at 140 or 147.
Yeah, he needs... I think he struggles at 147, but I think he needs a really good stoppage if he can get one, like a big knockout. He got loads of power, so I think if he can get that... And the way he sells himself, for this, the way he talks, which I'm not a fan of, but I think that all he's a fan-friendly style. So he gets a good win. He's back in the mix, isn't he?
Another one though, Andy, who was precariously placed should things not go his way this weekend. Obviously had that loss to Isaac Cruz and had the loss to Gervonta Davis, sandwiched either side of the worst stoppage of all time against Ismael Barroso in between those. So he does need a performance this weekend, Rolly Romero. There does come a point where, being a big name is not enough, or being a name is not enough, and you do have to do the talking in the ring. But 140 pounds, I mean, kind of we go back over it, and at some points of the last 18 months, it seemed like it's had one figurehead. It's going to be Teofimo Lopez, and then it's going to be Devin Haney. Then for a couple of weeks, it was Ryan Garcia, 143 pounds. But it looks as though it's again still somewhat open.
That was Liam Parrow.
Yeah, it was going to be Subriel Matias. Now it's Liam Parrow. So, as is often the case in boxing, but particularly at 140 at the minute, he's only one win away from seemingly landing himself another big opportunity.
Yeah, he is. It's exactly that. That's the situation, and it's as Barry was saying, it's amazing how precarious it can be. Where if you get the win, then you can launch yourself towards the top again. But if you don't get the win, then people below you, fighters coming through, their teams might start to eye you up as somebody who would be a great name to get on the record. It's kind of frightening, really, how stark the difference between those two scenarios can be, and
disillusional it is.
And the fine margins that can decide them. I was thinking that the other day when Adam Azim against O'Hara Davis got made, because O'Hara Davis was in a world title interim final eliminator. Fight, yeah, exactly. In his last fight, and now he's been recruited at not ridiculously short notice, but at like 6 or 7 weeks to be a really good name on Adam Azim's record. It's such a... To describe it as an unsentimental business is a wild understatement. But that Romero is only looking in one direction himself, because I think you're always aware, don't look down, because it's not going to do you any good.
So once you get to a certain level, when you're used to commanding a certain purse, I suppose, you do find fighters getting in that kind of that fringe world level crossroads more so than you get some other fighters, if that makes sense. It's almost like the higher up you get, the more precarious it can be, because the losses are greater. Your fall is higher.
Financially, you're knocking naught off.
And also as a promoter as well, you're looking at somebody like Rolly Romero is the guy we're talking about, or O'Hara Davis. You're looking at this, you're looking at that, and then you're thinking, well, actually, he's just been beat by this guy or that guy. maybe if I fight, he fights. When we know that happens, you know, people get on guaranteed passes and this, that, and the other. You're like, I could save myself a few quid if I put him in with so and so, and he chins him. So it's almost like it's true, isn't it?
It's awful, but
it is true.
It
is.
You go from being flavour of the month to fuck me, how do I get this guy's money off me?
It is absolutely fascinating. It's one of the really unique things about the sport. You know, a defeat in boxing, a loss, however you want to describe it, can be so damaging. And 1 minute you look at the kind of names that people are throwing around with regard to Ben Whittaker, and Dan Aziz is one of them. Dan Aziz has lost to Josh Buatsi. That's it.
Mate.
And I know he got a draw in his last fight, but never mind that. You know, he was a bit flat on the night, all that kind of thing, coming in off a first defeat. You can square that one away and just, you know, put it in a box. But people are then thinking, Whittaker, Aziz. But the plan there would be that Whittaker would beat Aziz and make them step up to the next level. If you're Dan Aziz, you're probably thinking, hang on a second.
I was 2 fights from a world title fight.
Yeah, exactly.
But look at Joe Cordina.
Yeah.
He loses his last fight, and now his promoter signs. And there's no one's done anything wrong here, by the way.
It's the way the law of the jungle.
He signs Shakur Stevenson, Eddie Hearn, and rightly so, he's a huge star. That's a brilliant signing for you. And then gives Joe a chance to fight for a world title. That's what you're going to argue, to give him a chance to fight for a world title. But he's backing his new boy. Yeah. Before that, Joe was his boy. And that's not him being horrible or malice. It's just the way the business, isn't it? Yeah. This is my new boy now. I want you to be successful, but maybe you don't give a shit. I don't know. Maybe he does. But he's the one now, not you, unfortunately. So you can fight him, and it's your chance. And if you beat him, you'll be my boy again. It's mad, isn't it? It's cruel without anyone doing anything wrong.
Trust issues in boxing.
If you can get,
it is, isn't it?
If you can get your head around that as a fighter, and I'm not saying that's easy. If you can, then I think that's how you manage to stay
and you can leverage your position.
That's how you stay sane. But it's
have to be okay with being kind of traded like meat.
You have to be aware from the start, don't you, that this is a business relationship. That's what it is. It doesn't mean that you can't be, you know, friendly, but it's a business relationship. And once you stop making money and somebody else appears who's going to make more, then, you know, they're going to do an old Don King, you know, you arrive with a winner and left with a winner. But
also for the just to balance it out with the promoter, you know, they especially trainers, worse for trainers, you do all that work with the fight and they go somewhere else.
Yeah.
The fighters are the most selfish people on the planet. We have to be, because it's all about you, because you're the one getting hurt. You should be selfish. You have to be selfish.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I look back, I wasn't selfish enough. And honestly, and you just think, but I left my first trainer. He did all that work with me, bless him, you know, and I didn't think I did the right thing. I'm still now sure I did the right thing. But it is mine. It wasn't. He can't say he trained the world champion, and he genuinely thinks I would have won it with him anyway, and I might have. You know, and you see that worse cases than that. And you see really bad things where trainers are chucked aside, managers are chucked to the side, promoters are chucked to the side, but mainly fighters are chucked to the side more than anything. You know, they're more of a commodity than anything else. And it's hard not to just treat it as a business, because it's personal, because it's about you. It's like, I try and tell fighters all the time, listen, it's not I'm not being personal to you, but my missus pointed at him, she said, but it's about them, so it is personal. Yeah. No, once they use on Twitter, I used to get now and again people go, "Oh, Barry, I want that with what you said this," and I go, "What are you on about?" She go, "Well, look how you're taking it.
Yeah,
you're taking it personal.
Exactly.
He's only voicing his opinion, like you're doing about him."
Exactly.
So, you know, it's about them, even if you're not being cruel. Like, it's about them, and even none of us are cruel in our jobs, especially me and you and I, but people would see. No, not to you. You're a prick. The nice people are boxers who punch each other in the brains, But you know, they take it personal. They take the silliest thing personal. You go, I didn't say anything bad. I didn't say anything good.
No, it's one thing I kind of thought about a while ago was how it comes with the emergence of the digital platform and how much easier it is for people to speak to you or say something to you if they want to. And I'm a painfully kind of logical person, and to the point where it's actually really irritating sometimes, as you're both painfully aware. But my approach has always been really simple. It's that I just always try as hard as I can, and I've got to the point now where I really can do it, not to be upset or mind, that might be a better word, what any fighter has to say about anything I say. Because how can I?
Well, you just be scared to open your mouth.
Because I get to say what I want about what they do. So for me to object to them being then allowed to say what they want about what I say about what they do, how can I?
But it's not
that?
their job to do that. That's your job. That's not their job. No. The whole point is, the whole point that I was trying to make, I know I took us on this rabbit hole, was that to treat it as a business when you move like a commodity,
really difficult.
It's hard because it is
Really
personal
difficult.
to you, and you do feel quite often. And also promoters, and I'm not digging them out, they need to sell it to you. They're salesmen, aren't they?
They need to make you feel special.
So they'll make you feel, and they do, by the way. And you walk out some offices thinking, oh, this is brilliant. Like, this is great. Oh, I got the world at my feet. And they might go, listen, if you can keep winning and you can do this and you can sell yourself, you have the world out at your feet. But they've been in. Everyone's been burned in this. You've been burned. We've all been burned in our own little careers, haven't we? I've been burned in 2 different careers in boxing, but it's not unique for anyone. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
We all think our story is unique, and especially boxers, we all got the same story. We could have been better. We could have been this. We could have been that. But ultimately, once you start losing, or even lose once, you're not looked at the same. They have to reassess what your worth is to them because it's their business to go forward. So yeah, that's how it is.
If you want loyalty, buy a dog, as they say.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Finally, just a little type. Just mentioning we don't have time to break the fight down. Stephen Fulton returns, former unified champion against Carlos Castro. I think that heads up the non-pay-per-view
That's a prime example, isn't it? Yes, that's a prime example.
Yeah.
Goes from boxing unification fight to being on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Decent little fight as well. Carlos Castro's not, he's been there, been around. He's not, he's capable. But yeah, it'd be good to see Stephen Fulton back in the ring, as will Roman Villa. Long night of boxing. Looking forward to it. It's been a bit quiet. over the last 5
Busy
or 6
now,
weeks.
that was kicking off now, mate, didn't it?
There we go.
Saturday was the start for me and you.
Yeah.
Monday night.
Yeah,
the top tier
decent
show. Yeah.
Decent show.
Right.
But the boxing was shit, but the commentary was amazing.
Unbelievable
The
stuff.
fighters
it
are
was.
crap, but the
Brilliant.
commentators have absolutely made the night.
Right, we have come to just ignore that. We've come to the end of the show.
It was a good. That's all I gotta say. It was a really good night. Everyone boxed really well.
Very good. Shout out, top tier. Yes, the prediction. Sorry, we're good at these. We're in good form. We haven't got one wrong in a few weeks. Anyway, we're going to start with Andy, and we are going to start with Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee.
I'll say Plant stoppage 9th round.
Barry?
No, I say Plant on points.
I will
I'm
also go
I'm a safe bet.
Plant points.
I'm going bigger and bolder this
I know.
new
I
season.
don't
on
like
our
it.
side.
There's no bolder and bigger than Eubank winning.
I was going to say, he's going to go big and bold. Who wins?
That's
Caleb
never
Plant or
gonna
Trevor
leave you
McCumbee?
that.
He's going to be
Eubank.
undisputed. He's going to win at
Eubank
Wembley
wins.
next May.
Barry, Erislandy Lara against Danny Garcia.
I go Lara for stoppage.
Okay.
Late.
Okay.
I'll say that his dad will pull him out after on the stall in between rounds. I'm going to be super specific after 9 rounds because it's that scenario that I outlined whereby he's come back after 2 years out. He's realised that it's not really happening. They both know it, and he just puts his hand on his son's shoulder and just says, "Listen, kid, our work here is done."
A hard fight to because so many question marks around where Danny Garcia is.
And also what Lara turns up as well.
And if Lara thinks, do you know what? Actually, we can just do this for 12 rounds. I'll win. Or does he go? Actually, I'll fucking get rid of you. I'm gonna go for Lara points.
Yes.
I think Garcia is one of those tough.
Yeah.
He's very nice and compact, isn't he?
I don't think it will be the case that he's getting a hammering, and that's why his dad decides that enough is enough. I think it will just be because it just isn't there in the way that we described. He's getting hit a bit too easily, maybe not really hurt, but hit a bit too easily. Can't pull the trigger, can't get off. All of those well-known phrases, and he just thinks to himself, "You know what? We've got nothing to prove."
I think a lot will. I think the first few rounds will be very telling.
Yeah.
Because I think Garcia needs to do something in those first couple of rounds. He needs to do something. And if Lara can line him up with that left hand early and he feels it, then that could be quite telling. But I'm going to go for Erislandy Lara points. A combination of the kind of the cautious Cuban nature and Danny Garcia being a little bit long in the tooth. A little bit too long in the tooth to just get blown out. And I think if Lara doesn't blow him out in the first few rounds, I don't think he will.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, and the main event, Andy, going to come to you. Saul Canelo Alvarez against Edgar Berlanga. Hasn't been a stoppage in a little while for Canelo, not since Caleb Plant back in 2011. Do you think we see him stop Berlanga?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be way too much for him, and he'll stop him. I'll say after 7.
Barry?
Yeah, no one to notice what you say. Did you just say Caleb 2011? Was his last stoppage?
Yeah. Let me just double check.
He
Make
stopped
sure.
Saunders, didn't he?
2011.
Make sure it's right.
You said Caleb
Caleb Plant, yeah. November 2011. Saunders was before him.
2011.
Yeah.
Come on, Rob, think about
2021,
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
I've been off for a while, man.
I was going,
That
geez, that-
math's never my strong
I'm
point.
like-
2021, sorry.
See, I'm so
He
thick.
knew what I meant.
See, I'm so thick.
I looked at him and he was like, oh, I was like, God,
No,
what
but
have
I'm
I
so
said?
thick. It don't sound right. I'm so thick. I don't want to correct you. Because I think I'll just embarrass myself. I think that's don't sound right.
2021
That's the thank. Yeah, that's
was
good.
the
That makes
last
sense, yeah.
stoppage. Win.
I think he stops. I think I about wrong date. I think Rob.
Okay.
Alright.
So you've got, okay, so, well, so you have to
As
get-
your son give you pink eye.
yes. Anyway, so you're going to the end of the 7th. Now, are we going to the end? Does the bell sound for the 8th or not?
it. No, in the 7th.
Okay, and you're,
8 in the 8th.
okay. So I'm going to go for 6 then. So I'll go
Nice.
for 6.
There we go.
1 early. I was going to go for 7, but
I think he's on the seat of his pants. Psh.
it wouldn't
Sat
it wouldn't
down. He just
surprise
sat
me
down and
if,
left- and
if,
Jeffrey
if
was-
Canelo hurts him early. I mean, it could go quite similar to the Munguia fight, but I don't think Berlanga will pull it back in the middle rounds, and I think he'll get stopped.
I quite enjoy when we all getting it wrong, so I have on Berlanga to win now. It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? If he just go
I mean,
bam, bam, bam.
we're always looking for a big shock. We would certainly make for the Monday show really, really interesting. If Berlanga is to get the job done, but I
Not
can't
next
see it.
Monday, Monday in like
It will be
No,
next Monday. We're
the
going
end
to try
of
and make
the
sure we
end
do
of
it every
November
week now.
sometime.
Every week now.
I don't know if I can do Monday.
The award-winning boxing
Actually.
show. We're back. We're bigger,
Gen-
bigger and better
Genuinely,
than
I
ever.
don't think I can.
But yes, that is all we have time for today on the returning boxing show. Thank you very much for your patience in waiting for us. But we are back better than ever. And we're going to be back every week. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and look out for more episodes of the boxing show. Let us know in the comments who you think will win, Saul Canelo Alvarez or not Caleb Plant. Jeez, I'm all over the place. Saul Canelo Alvarez or Edgar Berlanga, but maybe Caleb Plant will jump in.
That's
Anyway.
Declan Taylor. He was good.
Yeah, we'll get
was
Declan
good,
Taylor
yeah.
back.
Yeah, he
was
was
good.
good.
He did
But
well.
anyway, thanks very much for watching, and thank you, of course, to Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke. We'll catch up with you probably next week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.